everyone. I'm so glad you all could take some time to come out and join us this morning, or I guess we are officially in the afternoon, aren't we? This is the third installment of a series that was put together by some really dedicated faculty. And I want to give them a shout out because these things don't just happen. They take quite a bit of coordination and effort and work. And so I'd like to take a moment just to thank Justin Wheeler and Deb Nichols and Tony Vinci, who worked very hard to kind of put this program together for us. I think it's been a lovely program. This is the third installment of it. I don't say the last because what I hope this will do is inspire more such conversations about such an important topic as mental health. I don't think we can talk enough about it. I think it's very, very important. And I think one of the things that I particularly enjoyed about this series is that it is hopefully giving people some tools that they can use to help with self-care, but also connecting them perhaps to some resources that are available to them. We are an important one. And so that's really what I want to impart to you today and mostly just reinforce that if you all are suffering at all, or if you're concerned about anything, I hope that you take it upon yourself to reach out and talk to other folks, because we're here for you. We are interested in supporting you and doing all that we can to make sure that you are getting the most out of your time here, but you're doing it in a healthy, productive way too. So I'm not going to belabor this any longer. What I'd like to do is pass things over to Deb Nichols, who's going to introduce our wonderful speaker here today. I'm so excited that she made it all the way over from Athens to our campus to talk about this wonderful syndrome, imposter syndrome. So thank you all for coming, and I think there's time for interaction and questions afterwards, right? I'm going to pass it over to Deb Nichols now.
Thank you, Dean Milliken, for your words on the importance of mental health wellness here at OUC. We appreciate your support regarding this collaboration, and we look forward to continuing this work in the future. I also want to extend appreciation to Professor Justin Wheeler, who put together the NeoMed grant, making this event possible, and to Dr. Tony Vinci and student leader Maddie McKinney for their support and direction and the activities associated with our efforts the past 2 weeks. Today it is my pleasure to warmly welcome and introduce MaryKathyrine Tran, who is the Interim Director of the Ohio University Women's Center. She oversees cohort programs such as the Women's Mentoring Program and large-scale events like Take Back the Night in Athens. Also noteworthy, MaryKathyrine was recently awarded the Excellence in Higher Education Leadership Award from the American Council on Education, the Women's Network here in Ohio. MaryKathyrine is passionate about helping Women's Center constituents make resource and social connections while identifying and working toward their personal, professional, and leadership goals with confidence. So, thank you for driving over to our campus today, for reaching out and offering your insights on imposter syndrome.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited to see you all here today, and I want to start with a quick warning. As I've told a lot of your faculty members today, this is a very engaging workshop, and it requires you to talk to maybe your friends that you came to, and maybe some new folks. So do be ready for that if you would like. Before we get started, my name is MaryKathyrine Tran, as noted. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am originally from Wisconsin. I came to Ohio University in 2019, and I'm still happy to be here. So before we get started today, here are some learning objectives we're going to go through. I want us to talk about how we're going to normalize failure, which can be really tricky for some of us who are perfectionists, and also learn some strategies to be able to fail productively. In addition, we're going to define imposter syndrome. We're going to be able to figure out how that is coming into our lives and how it impacts us. But then I would never come to a workshop or presentation and not give you tools to help you after. So no worries with that. So before we get started today, we're going to have a little competition. So on the next slide, we are going to have a word search. And you're going to have 3 minutes to solve this word search. Just like in your head, try to find all the words, etc. And I'm not sure, what are people's favorite places in town to eat? Just yell them. The Courthouse? I don't know. Whoever wins this is going to get a $50 gift certificate, or I guess money, cash, because I don't know if they have gift certificates, to your favorite place to take you and a friend, or maybe you and a faculty member out for dinner. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah! I love energy! All right, ready to go. You have 3 minutes. Oh. All right, ready to go. Can you push play? Oh, back to, oh, maybe I can. Oh, there it is. I want the. All right, so like I mentioned, keep looking. You have exactly 3 minutes to find these words. The words that you have are genius, failure, superwoman, challenge, crush, celebrate, perfection, expert, individual, and grow. I see Professor Wheeler looks intense as though he is really looking for these words. Who could be him? It could be you. All right. Has anybody found 2 words? All right. Much better than my other groups I've done this with. Is anybody close to finding all of them? When I look at word searches, I like to think about all the different ways you can go through them, so such as frontwards, backwards, diagonal, up and down. But oftentimes I get really tripped out when there's a lot of O's. O's in a word. Oh my gosh, my Wisconsin accent just came out kind of wild. But a lot of O's, a lot of A's, thinking about that. Has anybody able to find individual yet? I see in the front, it looks like this person is very excited for a free meal. Compliments of me and my Women's Center Director salary. Also, don't forget challenge and crush. And like I said, it can be backwards, it can be forwards. Who can tell? You only have 1 minute and 50 seconds left, so really, really try harder. I know you all look pretty smart, so this shouldn't be too hard for you. I'm wondering for the faculty in the room, how are you doing? I see some fingers up, so you're trying to make sure you're seeing it. But like I said, it's not too hard. The words aren't too long or too challenging, right? So you have about, just a little bit of time left, so keep going. Is anybody close to finding all of them? Yeah? No? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs up. I see a middle thumb, which I appreciate the honesty there. Like I said, genius, failure, superwoman, challenge, crush, celebrate, perfection, expert, individual, and grow. Don't forget, like I said, you have exactly 1 minute left, and so you're really running out of time. It's really important for you to get all of these words. Like I know you're all in classes, you're pretty smart, so you should be able to figure this out, right? All right, frontwards, backwards, all those things, right? Anybody close to finding all of them? I see no hands, Oh. I see some people over here in the front chatting. Which ones are we stuck on? Individual, we're trying to look individual, look for some eyes. I see in the front, it says tyro, but that's not gonna help you at all. Perhaps have you tried diagonal? Have you tried all the ways? Talk to a peer, maybe they can help you and be smarter for you. All right, you only have 11 seconds left, and so things aren't looking good. All right, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't want it to go again. Oh my gosh, make it stop. I feel like I need my own tech person. So, how did it go? How did you feel during that experience? I hear overwhelmed, I hear pressure, someone said stressed. No one ever said it, but I was super annoying. Was anybody like this woman who we just met from Wisconsin? Yes. It's just like yapping. She is talking about nothing. We do not care, let us find these words. And I was mean to you. I was mean to you. Right? So you were stressed, and I saw some people who at the beginning were really excited and were looking for all the words, and then as time went on, they just completely checked out. Like our middle row people, they're just like, absolutely not, good luck, we'll see you never, right? And I always do worry people are going to leave me in this part of the workshop because I might leave me. And so when we think about what this looks like, I want you to consider what the situation was. So here is the key for the word searches. So you can take a peek at this and look around and see what's there, but also I want you to look at what wasn't there. There were a couple words that weren't even in the word search, and so failure, I'm making this person in the back very sad. Failure was inevitable here, right? And not only just because there was not genius, challenge, or celebrate, but were you in a situation just now where you were given a task where you felt empowered to win and to succeed? I gave you a word search on a PowerPoint screen. None of you are really close to it. There was no paper to help you. And then I had music playing with the timer on. And then I was mean to you. No one can really work well in these circumstances, and I want you to consider how this can look, maybe not a word search with a random person, but maybe in group work in classes, maybe in a committee meeting. Are you being set up for success? Or are you being set up to fail and then kind of blamed for that? So, as we get started, I want us to think about success and failure. So thinking about that past activity we just did, that was a situation where you couldn't have been successful no matter what. No matter what, there weren't the three words, I wasn't giving you a space to be successful. And I want you to think about, what does success mean to you? So when you think about, does that mean getting your degree? Does that mean being a good parent? Does that mean being a really good friend? What does success look like for you? And also, is success still success for you if you don't go from point A to point B, but perhaps you're going all over in a different route and you end up at the end, right? So I want you to think about failure in this new regard, thinking about how we can work towards this different definition of failure and how we can kind of change things up from when we were younger. So when I talk about imposter syndrome today, we often talk about it in a gendered lens and how women experience imposter syndrome, but I want folks to know people of all genders experience imposter syndrome, and it really can take place in the classroom, in your job, in your career field, even when it's just you doing your personal leadership development. So I want you to think about, are you okay with failing? And what does failing look like for you? Does it mean a stop sign, or does it mean a, hey, let's reroute? And then before we talk about imposter syndrome, I want us to think about success in the context of our culture. So for a lot of us, we might have grown up in a family where it was kind of a rise and grind culture, right? Where you were expected to just get your degree or get your stuff done and then be quiet and keep going, right? Like, don't cause problems, let's keep going. For myself, growing up really low income, it was all about getting to these different stepping stones really quick and supporting my family, right? And so when I think about culture, my culture and definition of success has really been influenced by how I grew up. For some folks who might be people of color, who might have different abilities, and who also just might have different life outlooks, success is going to look different for you. So throughout this workshop and throughout the rest of your year, I want you to think about, what is your definition of success? And also, how does it influence by the people around you or by the expectations that you have? So, what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is defined as the collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success. So when I talk about imposter syndrome, I always give the example that no matter when I give this presentation, I get so nervous. I have imposter syndrome about my imposter syndrome workshop. And I sit there and I'm like, they're gonna know. Like, what are they gonna know? I hope to make this workshop, right? And I think about I have an extensive background in gender studies and working with women and working with young leaders and working with activists, right? But I still sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know things, I'm faking it. And so that's imposter syndrome. However, if I was up here and saying, I'm gonna teach you today about rocket science, that's not imposter syndrome because I don't have the skill set or need or desire or any kind of background to do that. And so I'm not saying everything's imposter syndrome, but think about what is really true and what are you really capable of versus what is maybe your mind telling you that you're not capable of. So an example of this that I have is, another example is, I was recently awarded the Student Accessibility Services Ally Award, and I was just honestly so excited. It was such a cool opportunity. So many people do amazing work on all of our campus for student accessibility, and I could not believe that this had happened. I was just feeling so proud because it really demonstrated how my area really is working to make learning, being on campus more accessible for all, and also educating others. And I also just felt honored. It was just such a big deal that this had happened, and I was so excited to share it. However, within a second, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm stealing all the credit. I'm such an attention seeker, like it really was not that big of a deal, right? Like they're funny, because I'm not the person who knows all there is to know about accessibility. There's other people who are doing much better work than me. There's some people that are more deserving of me. And I think with a lot of folks, and I know especially with online, I don't know how many people like to spend time online, but the Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn effect can lead us to kind of have these second thoughts, right? Has anybody had an experience that's kind of similar to this? Or maybe they got an award, or got recognized, or just had something good happen, and maybe they felt they didn't deserve it. Thumbs up if so. Thank you. So when we think about imposter syndrome, and in your head, I would like you, as we go through these different steps, because maybe you're sitting here and thinking, maybe this doesn't apply to me, who can tell? So we're going to go through 6 different parts of this quiz as created by Valerie Young, who does a lot of work in imposter syndrome, and talk a little bit about what this can look like. So number 1 is, do you chalk your success up to luck, timing, or computer error? Do you believe that if I can do it, anybody can? Do you agonize over the smallest flaws in your work? Are you crushed by even constructive criticism, seeing it as evidence of your ineptness? When you succeed, do you secretly feel like you fooled them again? And do you somehow worry that it's just a matter of time before you're found out? So I want you currently, if you feel comfortable, turn to a peer and see if they feel comfortable sharing. From 1 to 6, which one might align with folks right now? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to talk to your little pod you have next to you, or chat with people about what you think about this. Ready, go.
Luke, you want to talk to the folks? Hey, what's up, man? How do you feel about number 2?
Feel about number 2.
Yeah. That's deep.
Especially in this area, it's something just a lot of us do. I think it's just part of this small town life that we're all kind of part of.
First question is assuming that you're succeeding.
So I'm hearing a lot of really good conversation happening, and I'm sorry to cut you off because I can kind of hear snippets and it sounds super engaging. But I think that if I could show by if people feel comfortable raising their hand, if you've experienced one of those 6 different situations. So there's a couple folks in me, 2 hands for me. But a lot of us have experienced that, right? And so some of the thoughts that might be brought up by imposter syndrome, like whether that's in the classroom or workspace, are things such as maybe I'm a failure, I'm not qualified for my job, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This is a big one I've talked to with students, where students are looking around at other peers and saying, have I done enough? Am I on the right track? Like, what else do I have to do for my resume? All these kinds of things. And then also, if you speak up, you might be wrong. So this really does have true ramifications in the workplace in particular. But what I find is that with the research we polled, this was data collected from 610 million users around the world in the via LinkedIn in 2018. And so we found that women were applying for fewer jobs. A lot of times I talk to students who think that when they apply for a job, they have to be 100% qualified and really relate and be able to do every single bullet point. However, you're supposed to be applying for jobs where you actually can't do all of that, because if you apply and you're 100% qualified, you should be going for that next job. And so oftentimes women in particular are taught you need to be 100% qualified or else don't apply, versus men will apply for ones that they are only 60% qualified for. And so keep these in mind, how these ramifications can really impact you as you're going to the job field, as you're looking for jobs, or even as you're interviewing, right? So Valerie Young does a really great job saying, hey, imposter syndrome is real, but there's some different types of them. And so I want you to, as we're going through, think about what type might relate to you. So we have perfectionist, natural genius, rugged individualist, expert, and superwoman. So the first one is my perfectionist. And so I'm not sure who's a perfectionist, but I am. And so these perfectionists are people who are mostly they think about, have you ever been accused of being a micromanager? Or perhaps you have a hard time delegating because you know that if you just did it, it would get done perfectly and be done and you don't have to worry about it. A lot of times, a lot of us who are perfectionists are so worried about being 100% correct, 100% right, that it really is stressful, right? You have a really, really, really unbelievably high mark of quality, which is okay, but it really can be detrimental. And so for that person, we try to tell you, you should try to be good enough, right? Think about the level in which you're working and how it's actually going, because this constant need for perfection is really going to run you down, right? And a lot of times it's propelled by imposter syndrome, because you think, if it's not perfect, they're not going to take me seriously, they're going to think I don't belong in the field I chose, they won't think I should be in this class, etc. The next one is natural genius, which is something that developed once I got to college. So I don't know if anybody's experienced this, where in high school perhaps you didn't have to study for things, you'd come in and take the exam and it would be perfectly fine. I see nods from our sparkly friend. Like, you were just like, it's fine, I know how to do this. And then you get to college and you're like, oh my gosh, study skills? I need to do this, right? And so you're just sitting there like, but I knew things. And so the imposter syndrome, like, I should know how to do this, right? Like, I should just be able to do this intuitively. I used people to do this. But like, honestly, nobody falls out of their bed knowing OChem, right? These are things that need to be developed and honored and take time to learn, right? And it doesn't make you less smart or less capable, it just means you have to hone those skills. So for that person, we tell you to have a growth mindset, to really consider what that definition of success looks like, and how failure is not a stop sign, as I mentioned before, but it's a way for you to grow and learn, and a part of the learning process. The next person is a rugged individualist. This is the person who wants to do it themselves. They do not want to look out for resources, they'll figure it out on their own. It'll be fine, they don't need additional help, they just want to keep it contained, figure it out, and then come back with a product. I know for myself and for folks I think who are first gen students, sometimes you're seen as the rugged individual because you don't have other people to ask, and you don't really know how to ask or who to ask, and so you're just like, I'm going to figure it out myself because I don't want them to know I don't know, and like I said, I'll come back with the answer later. And for that, we encourage you to advocate for resources to be successful. As I tell my students every single day, you pay a lot of money to go to school, and so if there are resources you want to use, please use them. And if you don't know if there are some, ask a faculty member or staff member. They'd be so happy to point you in the right direction. The next person is the expert, and I always make fun of my past colleague, Geneva Murray, because before a presentation, she would be looking online for the most recent data, like literally something that came out this morning, and she would put it in there to make sure that she was up to date. And I would say, Geneva, Dr. Murray, you don't have to do that. Like, they're not going to care if it's a month old is fine. But she felt this need to really show that she's an expert all the time. And for folks who are going to education or might be in academia, there's this constant need to make sure that you're always 100% correct in terms of your expert level. You don't want to be questioned. You want people to know that maybe you might not know every single thing happening. And so for that, we tell them too, it's okay to not know everything, which is hard to tell an expert. And then finally, the superwoman or the super person. This is the person in your life who probably has an Instagram where they're an amazing parent, their house is always clean, they might have an amazing truck, and like they just have all these things put together. It seems like they're balancing 18 different tasks in one, but like this beautiful juggling motion where they're absolutely fine. And a lot of times people aren't fine. It's really a lot of stress, a lot of emotional stress, and a lot of fear that if they're seen as not being capable, they're going to be seen as not successful in that way. And so for that person, we say to do less. So I want you to take just a second and turn to your buddy you just made and look and see, is there any one of these that you think you related to most? Was it the superwoman? Was it, was it the superwoman? Was it the, or super person? Was it the perfectionist? Was it the rugged individualist? Which one did you feel like you may have vibed with most? You're gonna have 1 minute to turn to your partner.
You too. I mean, all the like parts of it. Yeah, or like everything that you do still isn't
No, I said I need to find myself in a place called Superwoman.
Yeah, I try to go for this section.
Alrighty. I don't know who I heard it from, but somebody in the back said, I relate to all of these, and I have felt very similarly. Did anybody want to share anything about maybe what their group talked about, or anything you were thinking as this was coming up? If so, there's a mic down here, else if you really feel like you can yell, but also there's a mic so that people can hear you too. Or else I'm gonna call on Deb. Any thoughts? That's okay too, no worries. So, as I mentioned before, I never come into a space and say, hey, imposter syndrome is really bad, you probably have one of these different types, and it can be really stressful and impact your schoolwork, how you engage with your friends and peers, etc., and not give you any kind of ideas on how to work forward. So the first thing I like to tell people to do is to build a support team. It's really important for you to find mentors and find people who can be in your circle to not just be able to support you and be your cheerleader, but also the buddy who's going to say, hey, that might not have been a really good idea. Have you considered X, Y, Z? For mine, we consider table directors, and so on your table, you don't want to just have 5 cheerleaders, and you don't want to have 5 people who are kind of the more realists, who are going to kind of land your balloon all the time, right? So think about who's in your team. Who's the one that's going to say, hey, so-and-so, like, there's a really cool opportunity I saw for this organization, or did you see this job posting? I think you'd be perfect for it. So think about with your support team, who can you pull onto there and who's already there? Oftentimes a parent or guardian, like my mom, she is just so good at being my cheerleader all the time, like just always saying things, but sometimes I do need another person to come in and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Like that's probably not a good financial move, right? So make sure and try to think right now about who can be in your circle that can really help and really create a community that you trust. Next thing is changing your script. A lot of us are very guilty of oftentimes adding extra words into what we say to diminish what we're saying. So this could look like, oh, hi, I'm not trying to bother you. I'm sorry, I know you're really busy, but, or saying things that demean what you're saying. In particular, this can include hedging, so saying, I'm just, I think, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, or this is a stupid question, but oftentimes I have students say, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I have a question. And I say, I really want you to come talk to me. Like, that is honestly my goal as a staff and faculty member on campus, is to make sure that you can communicate with us. And so sometimes we really unintentionally do this, and we don't have to. And so this is a really good plugin via Google that can show you how to change your script via email. And now, so this one in particular from Steve, he says, Dear Mr. President, I'm just writing to say that I'm sorry for taking so long to get back to you. I think I have a plan for the strategic direction of the company in the coming year. I'm no expert, but, and so we see with Steve here, Steve really doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing, and he seems really nervous, right? And that's, I think, emailing a president is really intimidating, and it's gonna sound different emailing a president versus emailing a parent, right? But he could have said something to the effect of, I'm writing today to talk about the strategic plan, right? Saying just and think, make it seem as though he's not qualified, and it already makes us kind of question what this email is going to be about. And so I encourage you to look at your email strategies. For myself, I'm the queen of exclamation points because I want people to know I'm excited to talk to them and help them and support them. So after every email, I go out and I take out all of them but one. So I always have kind of a range on what's happening there. In addition, think about how often you're saying sorry. Are you really sorry, or is it just kind of like something that happens after you do something? So many of my students run into the wall and say sorry, or they apologize for stuff that does not need to be apologized for. So think about all the times you're saying sorry and what you really mean, right? A lot of times when a lot of my fellow colleagues were swamped with emails, and I'm taking a class now, so I know that all of you all have so many emails sent by the school. There's so many. And so instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry for running late, everything's been so swamped lately, again, I'm really, really sorry, I say thank you so much for your patience. This has been a really tricky time with staffing. And then I'm able to really shift that narrative so that people know I recognize that was late and I really appreciate you waiting for me, right? In terms of changing language, I do want to let you all tell you a cautionary tale about how it is really important to think about how, when you're pulling out this different language, because one time I was like, I'm tired of talking in really hedged ways and saying sorry all the time and really qualifying and quantifying what I'm doing. And so I just sent an email that was just very direct and finished, and I scared people. And I had someone from that company come down to my office and say, hey, I'm so sorry, like, we don't want to wreck our connection, like, and I was like, oh, no, I was just trying to be assertive. Like, it's totally fine. And so now you have to kind of figure out, like, when you're talking to people, how to use that tone, because it can backfire, and I am a demonstration of that. So when you think about, the next step is when you think about sharing your awesome, so sharing your biggest strength, how do you feel about sharing it? Do you feel perhaps like, oh my gosh, I'm Constance Wu, I know my skills, I'm ready to tell you about them, I'm amazing, I'm the best? Or do you feel maybe a little bit like Crying Boy, who I might not be crying, but I'm overwhelmed and slightly uncomfortable sharing, right? If you had to raise your hand, are you Constance Wu? Raise your hand now. Or are you Crying Boy? Same, me too. So I want you to really think about how can you get to know your awesome better, right? A lot of times this can look really different. For some people who don't want to have a fun affirmation jar that has all the ways in which they're awesome, whenever you get an email that says something like, hey Deb, I really appreciated the work you did in the committee meeting, I filed it away into a feedback folder, and not only is this helpful for yourself to remember that you are capable of your job, you are qualified, but also it's good for performance reviews. So if you have a faculty member you have a good connection with and they sent you a really nice email, save that, because that's going to be really helpful for you with your confidence, and as you're going out for interviews, you can talk about these experiences too. In addition, advocate for yourself. So think about, what do you need to be successful in class, in life, etc. Like what does success look like for you, and how is it happening in your classroom? So think about what do you want to grow to, who do you need on your side, what does that look like? And then finally, nominate yourself. Very often people do not nominate themselves for awards, but you're all awesome. And you can probably qualify for awards or scholarships, and so definitely consider doing that. The next one, I think, is kind of the hardest one, because the perfectionist in me and the person who wants to do it right all the time has a hard time with it, but really think about mistakes and how do they count, right? And think about what does success look like for you. So if you failed, I don't know why I keep saying OChem, but if you failed your OChem test, what does this mean for you? Oftentimes my students will come to my office and just be very, very upset and crying. And so we recontextualize things, right? Okay, so I say, okay, Marcy, this is a fake name. Okay, Marcy, so you failed your OCHEM exam. How many tests are there? And she'll say 4. And I'll say, okay, so what was the class average? And she'll say, oh, like 60%. And I'm like, well, we all kind of failed, right? So like the context in here is, there's ways to get around this and to think about, put context to what's happening. For you, it might look like a failure, but compared to your peers, and all, you're all kind of in the same range, which means you're all learning and still on the same path, right? And there's still, you're all successful in that way. So think about what does that look like for you in terms of maybe grades, if you're looking for a job right after graduation, if you're trying to just get more involved, what does that look like and what are the steps to get there? So my last time I'm going to make you all talk to each other is I would love for you to go back into your pods one last time for a little bit longer of a time. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. And so I want you to think, what would you do if imposter syndrome or failure was not something you were nervous about? Is there something in your life that you would want to do if you didn't have that fear? Ready, go.
I haven't worked on it. Wouldn't it be helpful to just say, you know what, I don't know how to be a student. I don't know how to be a student. And I don't know to do it. I'm really troubled by this idea that you have to assume it's good enough. I think that's the problem. Because the culture's telling you, of course you're awesome. Now prove it. Instead of, here's an opportunity to do whatever you want to do. Here's an opportunity to do. Does that make any sense what I'm saying? Because it's like, I'm thinking about acting class. First day, I don't know, I'm supposed to do anything else as much as I do. And it seems to allow for some actual success. It's like, oh, I did it. I got up on stage. If you come in saying, I'm a amazing, I know I'm great at this, then you're going to feel like an imposter because there's no proof. So fuck me. Am I wrong? How do you know? Is that confusing?
Like, yes, you can always get better. There's something that you're always having a moment where you get pushed to do something. It's the same reason I have to do it. If I didn't have it, I would move to New York, and I would be there right now. And I'm not, because I don't do it in my head, and I say I need a college degree, I need income, I need things about my resume, I need all of these different things. And then I psych myself out because I'm like, I'm never going to have the same resume as the other people who went to dance for 5 years. And so, I don't know, I don't think it would be healthier to say you're always an imposter. I think in things that you're learning it might be, and I think that you can always say, I think it would be healthier to say, you know that someone's always going to be better than you at that one thing. You know that there's always going to be a person, because there are always people who are better, or smarter, yada, 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 whatever. But I don't think it's healthy to say that you are an imposter, because there aren't. You do know what you're saying some of the time. You have to know what you're
I guess this is my point. It seems like the goal is just to feel better. Now, if the goal is to feel better, then you're never going to do it. Because my goal is to get into the mood. That's what you want to do, let's do that. So what you just described is a way to always stay here, but always feel like you're strong. Does that make sense? So what's wrong with actually saying, hey, I'm not there yet, I'm going to get some more experience. I'm going to get a choice. And I know I'm never excited to figure all of this, but what's that mean? Why? All of this stuff, I'm not sure. Not to be recognized, not to be celebrated, but to succeed. Without me telling you that anyone else knows.
All right, I'm hearing conversations slow down a little bit. And so I would love to hear from 3 people, if they don't mind sharing, if the fear of failure or your imposter syndrome wasn't an issue, what would you do? and I'll go first, since it's only fair. I know for myself, I would really love to go to a PhD program, but that fear of failure is massive. And so that's something I am working on currently. Who else? Yes?
We just kind of talked about, excuse me, about maybe speaking up more and feeling confident in speaking up and not like constantly analyzing what you have said after you speak.
That's such a good one. So I don't know if everybody heard that, but they were talking about being able to speak up more confidently, not being afraid of what you're saying. Like, I think that's such a really, really important thing, especially in classes, right? I know a lot of times sometimes we know the answer, but we might be afraid to say it because you might be wrong, right? So thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you two going first. Who else?
I guess I'll go.
Thank you.
I would probably try and strive for my goals more, because whenever I want to go for them, in my head, I realize that I would probably just fail, so I don't go for them. So probably go for the more towards my goals.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think what I always say too is if I'm really nervous, if anything, it'll be a really good story. And you're going to be developing some kind of skills even if you quote unquote fail, right? So I really encourage you to do that. I love that one. Thank you so much. And one more person, please.
You talked about like travel and pleasure, like taking pleasure and taking care of yourself, and instead of kind of buying into busyness or feeling the pressure to be busy.
Yes, I think that that's a really great way to look too and look at the personal, right? And so how can you experience joy more and allow yourself to have joy and allow yourself to travel or do things, even if maybe you don't think that you should, right? Because I think society really tells us to keep going all the time. So as I finish this presentation up, I want you to consider a couple different things. Think about how are you going to tackle this information? There's a lot of content in about a little under an hour, so I want you to think about, are you going to build a support team and think about who's in your corner, who do you need to get in your corner, right? Are you going to change your script and stop saying sorry so much, right? Maybe have fewer exclamation marks in your emails like I do. Are you going to work on knowing you're awesome and empowering those around you to know theirs too? Are you going to make your mistakes count? Or are you going to redefine success? So I'd love for you to commit to something moving forward and think about that in your head. Whilst I tell you about some amazing Women's Center events coming up. So I absolutely love having folks come to these events, and I want to let you know some different hybrid opportunities. So if you want to tune in via Teams, you are welcome to. The first one is if you were really inspired today and you're like, hey, I need to get my support team in order. I have a good workshop for you coming up on March 22nd as part of Women's History Month. We have Lifting Women Up, Cultivating Influence to Achieve Our Goals. And that is all about how we can have our personal board of directors. And this can apply to anybody of any gender too, because you really need to develop that support team, right? The second one is the macho paradox, why some men hurt women and how all men can help, in the evening with Dr. Jackson Katz. Dr. Katz is a really well-known scholar in the field of interpersonal violence. And so this will be focused, and it'll be via Teams webinar, about how folks can be better allies and help in this fight against interpersonal violence. And then also Take Back the Night, which is not virtual, but if you want to take a drive up to Athens and march with us on the bricks, we would love to have you. You can see my contact information on the right-hand side if you'd like to connect with us. But I really appreciate you all spending time with me today and talking about imposter syndrome, and I want to have some time for questions in case people have them. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions? And also, feel free, I'd like to do a little plug that I am around to help any student who wants it. We talk about salary negotiation, we can talk about gendered language, we can talk about looking for jobs or LinkedIn, anything like that. And so I am available via Microsoft Bookings, and I do all my bookings meetings via Teams too. And so I'm always a resource as well. Yes?
I have a question about building confidence. So we were talking about part of imposter syndrome might be linked to the lack of confidence, or maybe the connection between being prepared enough to do your awesome
absolutely. So tips for building confidence. What I like to do, because I think sometimes we have an imposter inside of us, right? That tells us you don't know things, it's not gonna work out. I like to stick with the facts, right? And so think about, like sit down and think, okay, so what am I capable of, right? And so look at the classes you're involved with. Look at the relationships that you have and friendships you have. Look at the different skill sets that you've developed or personality traits that you have, and then make another assessment, right? I think that when we look at ourselves, it's easy for us to demean the work we've done, but I always do tell students to look at every single experience as an experience that is valuable and something you learn from. And so if you, like I worked at the YMCA for 10 years, and so as a swim instructor and all of these things, and I still pull in those skills of working with, I taught aqua babies, and I talk about being able to work with very young people to very elderly folks, right? So look at what you're doing and pull those experiences together to have a good demonstration of who you are as a person, not just as a professional, but also as, you know, an individual human. Because that can be hard. It can be easy to say, oh, you're awesome, and you're like, but am I awesome? But you are. But you have to be able to find that yourself too. Any other questions? Yes?
This is the reasons I don't like sitting in front of it. So I was just curious, we kind of talked about this a little bit, if there's any of this research that focuses on age and, you know, how to, because I kind of went along with the confidence too. As you build your confidence, do you grow out of how do you grow out of this?
Right. I'm positive that there is research based on age breakdown of this, because I feel like generationally things have changed so much. And so even I'm a millennial, and I talk to my Gen Z students, and the way in which they were raised really makes an impact in terms of confidence building. I don't really think off the top of my head, but if I think of something, I'll send it over to y'all. But I think it absolutely can impact that. And I think also the folks you hang around, right? So if your community is kind of, I think folks find it really hard to sometimes share about their accomplishments because it can be seen as boasting for some communities, right? For some cultures, like you're supposed to just do really well and then not talk about it because you shouldn't have to talk about it, right? But when you're in the workforce and when you're going for jobs, you have to be able to say what qualifies you above a different candidate. And so I think that generationally it makes a lot of sense that we be trained in different ways to share. And so I think that's something we all have to learn how to break and kind of adapt with. Yes?
I know on the same note, because I know I personally struggle like being confident about my achievements versus feeling like I'm being conceited because I'm discussing them. So like, how would you suggest approaching that to where like getting into a better mindset about feeling confident and that it's not cocky or conceited?
Right. And I think a lot of us are, like, no matter what your gender is, you are trained to say, well, make sure you can share, but just don't be weird about it, right? Like, I think a lot of Facebook or Instagram, when people share stuff and they either share it as like, I'm excited to announce this or whatever, I think it really depends on how you come across and how confident you feel in your strengths and skills. And so if I came up here and said like, I give this presentation, I'm amazing all the time, I do nothing wrong, everything I do is amazing, that would be very cocky and conceited, right? But me coming up and saying, I'm the interim director, this is my favorite presentation to do, and I really love talking with folks. There's ways to frame it in terms of my skill set and strengths that still tell you that I'm maybe amazing, right? But I don't have to say I'm amazing. So think about the language you're using and the evidence that you're pulling that actually relates to that skill set. So make sure you say, hey, like, I'm the best shift manager there ever was. You don't need to say that. You can say, I managed 30 different people on 5 different days. I've like done X, Y, Z amount of products in this amount of time. Or you're able to demonstrate that in a way that's not going to seem as though you're boasting, right? You can just have your words boast for you. Is that helpful? Yes?
So much what we talked about today has been about sort of managing feeling, managing mindset. Is there a way to sort of think about actual achievement, actual qualifications, besides the actual imposter syndrome, how to make sure you're not actually an imposter? An example, one of my students today, we were talking about it before class, was saying, I'm not a student. I don't read. I never know what's going on. I just kind of show up, but I got all these A's, so I'm actually not really the thing I'm called. So I'm always told I'm a student, but I'm not really a student. I would like to learn how to be one, but no one will teach me because they assume I'm already one. Does that, am I making sense? So how might we help people actually achieve and actually be credentialed, create qualifications outside of the feelings of, feeling like I'm qualified? Because it seems like we're working on sort of internal stuff, and I'm wondering about achievement in the actual world.
I'm trying to think of, that's such a deep question. I think when I think about that, I think a lot about the unwritten curriculum of higher education, and the workforce in general, where a lot of times we're not taught. Like, I don't think I ever had a class that said, this is how you're a student, how you get up on time, how you manage class, how you have a friendship, that kind of thing. And so I think it is making that visible for folks and saying, unfortunately, this is what professionalism looks like in the Western world. Here are these steps to get there. And so what I would tell that student is, so you're able to get by right now. Like the example I gave before, when I was in high school, you could just kind of, things happen. There's going to be a point where you don't know something and you can't slide by, right? And so what are the steps to really tangibly look at action plan, goal setting, etc., to make that a reality? Because it's going to happen to all of you. There's going to be something you don't know, and it's going to be a very, very big shift when that happens. But saying, this is what a student looks like. A student probably studies for X amount of time, and again, I'm generalizing as well, right? Because it depends on the field. But a student is going to need to be able to analyze content or data, right? They're going to be able to tell and speak eloquently and be able to share their emotions and feelings about a text, etc. And so I would put it tangibly into those specific skill sets to help people recognize what they need to be successful. Does that touch at all on your question at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Any other folks have any ideas about that too? Because that was a pretty meaty question.
I think it kind of goes on what you clarify as a student, because we can all put a definition to a lot of different words, and a lot of different people are going to look at it differently.
Right.
You know, I mean, a lot of people might look at a student and think, oh, well, they get up at 8 a.m. every morning, you know, they get their coffee, their breakfast, they're studying. Whereas, like me as a student, I do my best work in the middle of the night when I have no sleep coming to class the next day. So, like, I think it's really putting that definition for yourself and understanding that it might not match everybody else's definition. But if you feel confident in your work, or if you can feel confident, then maybe it's okay.
Right, so being malleable in the definitions, I think that that's absolutely an amazing point. And the modern worker and the modern student, the modern folks are changing depending on need, whether that's new virtual landscape or people caretaking and doing a bunch of different obligations. There's not really a one-size-fits-all policy, but I do think it will be helpful for people to know that there are certain things to expect when you go into X field, right? But I think amazing points. Thank you. Well, we are exactly at time, and so I want to honor your time today. I'll be here a little bit if you have any questions, but thank you so much for sharing authentically and not minding that I yelled at you for the word search. You did an amazing job, but have an amazing day, and thank you.
You know what we should have done? We should have performed here in the room. You know how she,
Yes.
would have, right? When she's slapping herself and punishing herself, like that would have been a perfect way to sort of set this up. We should get up there.
I should have to my
Exactly. You'll be my emotional sports writer.
Good job.